Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the TMZ Podcast. I'm Charlie Cotton, and joining me on the podcast today is Lothario lawyer Derek Kaufman.
So I imagine these stories are going to have to do with the Lothario and the lawyer part, right?
Actually,
Got a little bit of both?
You're very true about that.
The only middle-aged Lothario you know, huh? I love that you give me that name.
I melt when I look at you, mate. If you're listening on podcast, go and check out the YouTube.
Mary doesn't know what she has, right?
Yeah, your wife. She married up big time. So we got some good ones today. TikTok is poised for a ban.
Huge.
Kanye West is launching a porn studio.
I think that's a good use of his time.
Yeah.
I'd prefer that to the anti-Semitic rants.
Our almost news segment is about a Nepo baby who the Nepo's wearing off. It's just not working right.
These are some of my favorite things. Let's get into it.
To begin with, Diddy's assistant. You might remember this young white kid, basketball,
Syracuse alum.
Syracuse, young boy.
Yeah.
His name is Brendan Paul. He was just charged with a felony drug possession. This is stemming from, the raid on the plane that Diddy was on. Brendan was on that plane, and it happened at the same time as the raids happened at both of his homes.
Yeah.
And now this kid is facing these charges.
Yeah, we had this video of Diddy pacing around the Opa-locka airport. That's when this kid was apparently arrested, and he has been called the drug mule in reports since then. I mean, he is a former Syracuse, I think, basketball player, maybe a walk-on at Syracuse.
Yes.
I don't remember him, and I'm a big fan of the team. But he apparently took up another hobby where he hung out with Diddy, and now he's facing this drug possession charge. The reports were that he had some marijuana-laced candies and maybe some cocaine, but I think only one charge has come against him at this point, right?
Right, yes.
So that's pretty important because everyone has been painting Diddy. We've seen the search warrants. We've seen the house ransacked and so forth, but nobody yet has been charged in connection with this. Diddy certainly hasn't been charged with anything. It seems to be in the investigatory phase. Well, now we have charges. And so this is a big deal. It's a big deal because of this. If this kid were really on the inside and now he's facing a serious charge where he could do time, that's when birdies start tweeting.
Yes.
Right? Because to save your own hide, all of a sudden he's looking at Diddy, and the feds don't want Brendan Paul. Okay, let's be honest about this. This is part of their larger investigation, and they think they can get information, I'm sure, from this kid about the larger enterprise that the feds think is going on with Diddy. Sex trafficking, drugs, all those kinds of things they're looking into. Does he know anything? And will he turn against Diddy? Here's what's interesting to me. This charge isn't very serious.
It's not.
Maybe this kid takes the rap and just says, I'm zipping it up. I'll do whatever I get, probation, maybe a year, whatever it is for this kind of drug charge. And then Diddy going to take care of me because I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
Right.
So I don't know that this will work. I don't know that they got enough to scare him into talking. What do you think?
You think he might just go to jail for 1 year or less? Maybe not even jail time at all?
I don't know. Look, the feds are going to threaten and say, this is very serious. You could do serious time. But when I look at this charge, trafficking's very serious. But in the possession realm, they're less serious charges. And depending on how much he had on him, whether they can hit him with you were trying to move drugs across state lines for the purpose of selling or distributing them, which is a very serious charge, or did you have some drugs on you for personal use?
Right.
Those are very different charges. And it's unclear to me whether this kid's like, when you get in these circles, you're ride or die. You're tough. You don't want to, spill on Diddy. No one wants to be a rat. Yeah.
If you're a snitch, then you know what happens. You know what I mean?
Listen, Tekashi lives that life.
True. But are the feds monitoring everyone's phones now as well? Could Diddy send a shh emoji or a rat emoji and then just go, don't talk?
He's got to be very careful. If they had that search warrant enough to go through his house with that armed raid, they certainly have enough evidence to do things like that. Are they doing surveillance? I have no idea. They keep that all under wraps because they don't want Diddy to know, and they certainly don't want reports, but it's possible. So I bet he's being very quiet, having all meetings in person, sort of talking like this a little bit, not have lip readers. So yeah, I think all of that is happening just like you see in the movies because he's got to be nervous that the walls are closing in. This kind of news development makes someone like Diddy nervous. I will say that.
Do you think, I'm not sure what goes on in sort of Diddy and Brendan Paul's business relationship, but do you think conversations had to have taken place throughout his employment as the drug mule as to what...
If he were the drug mule. The alleged
if he was the drug mule, sorry. this is what happens if we get busted. This is our protocol if we get busted, Brendan. Like,
yeah, I'm not sure how many of those conversations are explicit versus implicit when you're hired. If they're sort of, if they're saying, "Hey, we're running a criminal enterprise here. Here's the protocol. We got this little pamphlet for you to read through." I don't think it's like that, but I think you look for people that you can trust and loyalty and things like that, and discretion and keeping things tight to the vest. Those are the qualities you look for if you're doing shady things. So he probably has a level of trust with this kid, and he's hoping that that carries him through the day. But I don't know. Things change when you get arrested. They just do. Now this kid is facing real time. Diddy's not going to be able to help him. No more mansions when you're sitting in a cell. So unclear whether he'll actually sort of cooperate or just take the charge. I don't know.
Okay, on to our next story. The Senate has passed a sell or ban bill to restrict TikTok in America. So, I mean, nothing in this country seems bipartisan anymore, but this was. The Senate obviously passed it, 79-18, and the House had approved it, 360-58. So
we don't see bipartisan bills like this in our divided country, but everyone wants to ban TikTok.
And honestly, I feel for creators and people who earn a living through TikTok, but
what about me? The last 15 minutes of my night in bed, man. That's what I'm just like scrolling mindlessly. I love TikTok. TikTok is so good.
It's so good, but
such a great algorithm.
Firstly, I think they'll probably sell it to an American company, the American component of TikTok. And otherwise, I don't think that they can stand to lose that much money. I think it's a good thing that this ban, or it's not going to be a ban, but restriction takes place because, yeah, what China can do with the information about all the young kids and people your age as well, elderly people like you, they can do anything with that information. So they're kind of spying on you in that way. They know the makeup of the people. And also, we don't know how magical algorithms work, how they can push this content and restrict this content and basically get into your heads in a way you don't even know they're in your head.
There's a real anxiety about this. And
right.
You're right. Like, China's interesting. They're an enemy of the U.S. in a lot of respects, but they're sort of not, they don't seem like the big bad guy like Russia, because we get a lot of goods from China and so forth. There's some trade relations, but there's a lot of anxiety about them surveilling us, basically, and getting lots of data about Americans that they can use for nefarious purposes, for trade purposes, what have you. And this is, both Democrats and Republicans have to show that they're concerned about this. That's why you get such like bipartisan movements to ban TikTok. I agree with you. This is not going to end with TikTok going away. There's just too much money at stake. It is massive. It is like swamped Instagram in so many ways. But I do think the forced sale will put a Band-Aid on this. I'm not sure that just selling to an American company with some sort of firewall between the parent company in China and the American subsidiary really solves the problem. I think it shows the American people that we'll separate them, and now these are two distinct entities, but corporate governance and the way that the parent has influence on the subsidiary, I'm not sure it's going to be all that clean that you can sort of rest easy that China has no influence over this thing, because they own it. They own the big thing. So even if they spin it off, I'm not sure that everything is hunky-dory. That's certainly what they want to do, and that's what they want to tell the American people. It's now safe to use. You're not being surveilled. Unclear what the details will look like.
You know who must be really, really kicking himself right now?
Who's that?
Elon Musk.
Yeah.
He spent roughly $50 billion on Twitter. You know how much they think right now TikTok, the American component, would cost?
How much?
About $50 billion.
No way.
Right.
That's what a better buy,
That's what the New York Times said. So, I mean...
Instead, he's got that hellhole over there, X.
Right.
That is like losing and hemorrhaging money. He's trying to charge for tweets now. Do you see that?
It's incredible. Like, he seems like he could be the perfect TikTok person, but I mean, maybe he's got an extra $50 bill up the sleeve, potentially.
It's weird time for Elon, man. Tesla stock is in the toilet. X is having a hard time. He made some wrong moves, and he used to be the golden boy.
Let me tell you the apps and websites that are banned in China.
Oh.
The American ones that are banned in China. They do the same thing. Google, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Zoom, Spotify, LinkedIn, and TikTok.
Unbelievable.
TikTok is banned in China.
Unbelievable.
Yes,
in their own country, their most successful contribution to social media streaming nonsense.
Yes, they have another one called Douyin or Doujin. And it's similar to TikTok, but it's heavily monitored. It's heavily censored. It's basically what we do over. It's unbelievable.
Look, it's a tightly restrictive country. I
Yes.
mean, especially now under the current administration over there, it's not quite like Mao in the 50s, but it's closer to that than fully democratized. It was moving in the direction of democratization and opening up their economy, and it's tightened up recently. And this is an indication of that for sure.
For sure. Okay, on to our next story. Kanye West plans to launch Yeezy Porn. Yeezy's consulting with Stormy Daniels' ex, this guy named Mike Moz, who helped her produce a couple of her films.
Yeah, no, listen, she was a thriving porn star before the whole Donald Trump thing ever happened.
Well, now Yeezy.
I think that was his interest in her.
Yeah, I think so too. Now Yeezy's planning to launch this studio. And it's interesting on a number of levels, but I think it's most interesting because this guy struggles with a porn addiction that he said destroyed his family with Kim.
I'm going to give you my take. I think it's wonderful news. I'd love for Kanye West to be distracted by porn, which
and
is
you
a
love
passion of his.
And you love porn as well. So.
Listen, it's a shared interest, and I think we both, it's just nice to see him sort of exploring passions that aren't anti-Semitic rants. Do you know what I mean? I think he's got so many grievances. This one, I'm not saying porn is harmless. Look, there's a lot about the porn industry that is very serious and damaging to women and damaging for society in some ways, but some of it's innocent good fun,
Yeah.
And if he makes the right kind of porn,
what is the right kind of porn?
And hopefully he will. I'm not even going to touch it. The good kind, the wholesome kind. So
Yeah.
Look, he's very interested in this. Remember him getting together with Kim? He was fascinated with her sex tape. Do you remember this?
Yes.
He does have a real passion about it. He talks about it.
No, he calls it addiction.
Yeah.
Isn't this the same thing as an alcoholic opening a bar?
Yeah, it could be corrosive to his family dynamic. He's got young kids.
Yes.
I think what's weird about Kanye is so many of these things, if it were a 20-year-old sort of figuring himself out, it would be toxic. Oh, you go through an anti-Semitic phase or all this kind of stuff. He's my age. He really is. He's maybe even a little older than me. And
should have got it out of the system by now.
Yeah, you got to shake that stuff out. You read Ayn Rand, you get into porn, all this kind of stuff. But then you have young kids, and the fact that he has North and daughters, I don't know. It's just gross that he's I'm gonna be their famous dad, multi-millionaire, and I'm gonna be a porn magnate who hates Jews. What kind of model are you setting for children?
Don't you think it devalues the Yeezy brand as a whole as well? I
think he's just throwing spaghetti at the wall at this point. The Yeezy brand is, what is it? It is just his image, and he wants to be as provocative as possible.
But just clothing
Adidas
and
has already
music
run from him. Yeah, it was cool when he was just
porn.
dressing people in gray suits, gray sweatsuits. That was harming nobody. He was making everyone look like communists in those outfits that were all the same,
right?
Very strange, but it was harmless. This kind of stuff is kind of toxic. I know I started by saying great job on the porn, but now I've circled around to too late in life. You should have done this in your 20s.
Right, we've already got enough porn.
Got a lot of porn. We're quite a saturated market.
Oh, no, saturated. Okay, almost news time. This one's a good one. Rocker John Bon Jovi is complaining that casting agents aren't hiring his aspiring actor son, Jake Bon Jovi.
And what does he say it's because of?
He says it's because auditions have moved to Zoom. So let me give you his quote.
Yeah, please read it in its entirety. I want to savor it.
My son is a young aspiring actor. He would have that magic when he walked into a room for an audition, but he came up during COVID and now everything is on Zoom. All these casting agents are missing out on the personality of the young actor, winning your heart, not just reading your lines.
Unbelievable. These are the quiet inside thoughts of a proud parent. And John Bon Jovi, very famous from his hair metal days, it doesn't read the room correctly when his very privileged son is not getting parts. Oh, Millie Bobby Brown is his fiance, and she's out there killing it in the acting world, and his son is on Zoom not blowing away casting directors. I'm sorry. Listen, this is the other side maybe of nepotism. Maybe he's saying my kid can't get a fair shake over Zoom because he can't bring me to the audition where they meet Bon Jovi.
Yeah, right. Or share stories about being on the road with my dad.
Exactly. All they see him is another face on Zoom, and he's not popping off the screen. this is actually how he should be evaluated in my mind.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he has to show up in a dingy motel room on Zoom and blow away casting directors. If you're a really good actor, you should burst through the screen. That's what they're looking for, because eventually you're going to be in projects that are on a screen. So I don't think Zoom is a terrible mode of showing whether you have charisma. And look, he seems like a perfectly nice kid. Maybe he just doesn't got it. That's
well, I
okay.
mean, if his
but you
dad
can't nepo it into reality.
If his dad is John and his soon-to-be wife is Millie, and he's got dashing good looks, he's that age, he's young, he must just be a stinker. Like, if he can't...
He is good looking, yeah.
He thinks he should be bigger by now. He's not. He's coming out in some movie called Rock Bottom where he basically plays his dad.
Wow.
A rock star. I mean...
Here's the thing. You know, this is like people who, I'll tell you what it reminds me of. People who say, man, my house is worth $5 million. I won't take anything less than $5 million. Then you put it on the market and it only is worth $1 million. Guess what your house is worth? $1 million.
Right.
Your house is worth what people are willing to pay for it. And your worth as an actor is worth as much as people are willing to cast you. You can't just say you're wonderful and you're magical. I mean, it's fine. He's a proud parent. It's on some level, I'm like, what's he supposed to say about his son? He thinks he's magical, but the world doesn't. And that's okay. Or hasn't seen it yet. And it's not because of Zoom necessarily. I know he wants to believe that it's because of some mechanical problem with the casting process.
No.
You know, I'm pretty realistic about it. We talk about this a lot in the room. Like, you got to know your kids. Like, I love Nixon and Carter, but like, I can see that she's not going to be a basketball player. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I watched the season with her. I was telling you about it. It was just like, man, she doesn't got it.
She doesn't
got it. And I saw kids who do have it.
What about
That's
Carter?
Okay. It doesn't mean I love her any less.
What about Carter?
Man, Carter's going to be a fullback for sure, man. That kid
fullback?
He can pack it in, and he's going to definitely run down some tackles.
Okay.
But he's not very fast.
What lofty ambitions for your kids?
Know what you got. Know what you got. It's okay. Jake is going to have a great life regardless.
Yes, he will. Okay, man. Thank you very much for joining me in the studio today, Derek.
Always fun.
And we'll see you guys here tomorrow. Goodbye.